All right, we continue to monitor today's major case at the Supreme Court. Justices are hearing arguments on the president's authority to impose tariffs on any international country. CBS News legal reporter Katrina Kaufman is live outside of the Supreme Court and joins me now to talk about it. Katrina, all right, here's where we're looking. Catch us up. What have we learned so far?
Hi, Vlad. Well, first of all, I'm out in front of the Supreme Court, and there is a long line of people here who are waiting to get into these arguments. This is such a big case that it's really drawing a crowd. But so far, there has been a lot of pushback. John Sauer is arguing on behalf of the Trump administration right now, and he's arguing to a court of originalists, of textualists, of people who rely on statutory interpretation. And Vlad, they keep asking him about the way he's trying to use the language here to regulate importation. Justice Amy Coney Barrett was pushing back a lot on him. She said, can you point to any place in the statutory code, in the history, where it was used to confer tariff authority? And she is someone who really is strong on statutory interpretation, Vlad. Another one of the justices just said that to have the president's power trump congressional power when it comes to taxation seems to neutralize those powers. So this is really a really key case about the balance of power. John Sauer has been arguing that the president has broad authority when it comes to foreign affairs, that he has the inherent power to regulate foreign commerce. He also said that
the silence around this story is the most revealing part, because when power starts operating in the shadows, it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't issue press releases. It doesn't confirm titles or roles. It moves quietly, informally, and just far enough outside the rules that accountability never quite catches up. And that is exactly what appears to be happening inside the Department of Homeland Security right now. This is not about gossip. This is not about personal conduct. This is not about who may or may not be involved in a private relationship. Those details are almost a distraction. What matters is the machinery of government, and whether it is being run through lawful channels or through influence that exists precisely because it refuses to be formalized. Because here is the central fact that cannot be waved away. One individual, with no confirmed title, no Senate confirmation, and no formal accountability, is reportedly exercising sweeping authority over one of the most powerful agencies in the federal government. And the reason that authority remains unofficial appears to have nothing to do with merit and everything to do with optics. When an administration is more concerned with avoiding headlines than following law, the result is not stability, it is rot. According to multiple reports, Corey Lewandowski has been operating as a de facto chief of staff to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, not on paper, not through an official appointment, but in practice. He is allegedly directing resources, influencing disaster relief funding, ordering polygraphs, making staffing decisions, and shaping policy across DHS. Those are not symbolic actions. Those are executive functions. Those are decisions that affect lives, communities, and the integrity of national governance. And yet, none of this power flows through the constitutional safeguards that exist precisely to prevent this kind of informal rule. No confirmation hearings, no congressional oversight, no defined authority, no paper trail, just influence. And here's where the story sharpens. Reports indicate that Donald Trump himself blocked Lewandowski from being formally appointed to the role. Not because Lewandowski was unqualified, not because of legal concerns, but because of optics tied to persistent rumors involving the secretary herself. So rather than remove the individual or shut down the arrangement, Trump allowed something worse: power without title. This is not a workaround. It's a deliberate choice, and it reveals something essential about how this administration operates. Because formal appointments create accountability, informal influence destroys it. If Lewandowski had been appointed, Congress could call him to testify. Inspectors general could review his decisions. Records could be subpoenaed. Authority could be traced. But when power exists in the shadows, none of that applies. And that is not accidental. This story has been circulating quietly for years, long before this administration returned to office, long before DHS became the focal point. People inside Republican political circles have whispered about this dynamic since at least 2019, at events, at fundraisers, at closed-door gatherings where people talk freely because they believe no one is recording. Those rumors have never been confirmed. Secretary Noem has denied them repeatedly and forcefully. And under the standards of responsible analysis, that matters. Allegations are not facts. Rumors are not proof. But governance does not hinge on rumors. It hinges on behavior. And the behavior here, the decision to allow a powerful political operative to function as a shadow chief of staff, raises questions that have nothing to do with romance and everything to do with rule of law. Because even if every rumor were false, the structure itself would still be indefensible. Think about what is being described. An unofficial actor directing FEMA funding, an unofficial actor ordering polygraphs on federal employees, an unofficial actor shaping staffing decisions, an unofficial actor influencing national security operations. That is not how American government is supposed to function. DHS is not a campaign office. FEMA is not a political reward system. Disaster relief is not a loyalty program. And yet, reports suggest that FEMA funding decisions may have been influenced to favor states aligned with Trump politically. Red states, Republican states, friendly governors. If true, that is not merely unethical. It is a violation of the foundational principle that disaster response is based on need, not allegiance. When hurricanes strike, floods rise, or wildfires spread, FEMA's mandate is simple: respond where the damage is greatest. Politics is irrelevant. Party affiliation is irrelevant. Voting history is irrelevant. If that system is being distorted, even informally, it undermines public trust in a way that is extraordinarily difficult to repair. Because the moment Americans believe disaster relief is political, they stop believing government exists to protect them. Now step back and look at the pattern. Donald Trump has always preferred loyalty over structure, influence over institutions, personal relationships over formal process. This is not new. It is a governing philosophy. Cabinet officials who operate independently are sidelined. Officials who bypass channels and report directly to Trump are empowered. Titles matter less than access. But access without accountability is the hallmark of authoritarian governance. In functioning democracies, power flows through systems. In degraded ones, it flows through people. And that distinction is everything. The Constitution does not trust individuals. It trusts process. It disperses authority intentionally, precisely because concentrated power invites abuse. When someone exercises power without appointment, they are not bound by the same constraints. They are not subject to the same oversight. They do not have to explain themselves under oath, and that creates a shadow state, one that exists parallel to the lawful one, but answers to no one. This is why the question of who is actually running DHS matters so deeply. If Secretary Noam is the public face, but Lewandowski is the operational force, then the agency is effectively being led by someone the public never approved and Congress never vetted. That is not a technicality. It is a democratic failure. Consider the polygraph issue. Polygraphs are not casual tools. They are invasive. They imply suspicion. They affect careers and reputations. Ordering them is an exercise of serious authority. If those orders are coming from someone without formal authorization, it means DHS employees may be subjected to coercive measures without lawful justification. That is a civil liberties concern. And once again, it is the informality that makes it dangerous. Because if a confirmed official abuses authority, there are mechanisms to respond. But when authority itself is undefined, responsibility becomes impossible to assign. Now look at the travel patterns that have fueled speculation. Solo international trips, official DHS business conducted without standard staffing or security presence, repeated close proximity, shared housing arrangements. None of this proves a relationship. None of it has to. The issue is not intimacy. It is proximity to power. Because proximity is how influence is exerted. When two individuals operate in constant close coordination, traveling together, living nearby, working outside normal channels, it creates a feedback loop that bypasses institutional checks. And if one of those individuals is not officially empowered, the imbalance becomes even more severe. This is how shadow governance forms. Not through coups, not through declarations, through convenience, through trust, through informality that gradually becomes normalized, until suddenly it is the system. The administration's own behavior suggests awareness of the problem. Reports indicate that Trump's aides hesitated to consider Noam as a vice presidential pick in 2024 precisely because of these rumors and optics. That means the issue was known internally, discussed, weighed. Trump understood that formalizing the arrangement would trigger scrutiny, so he avoided formalization, but he did not remove the influence. That decision tells you everything. If the concern were misconduct, the solution would be separation. If the concern were competence, the solution would be confirmation. Instead, the solution was invisibility. Power was allowed to exist, but not to be seen. This is not accidental governance. It is strategic ambiguity. And ambiguity is how accountability dies. Because when Congress asks who made a decision, there is no clear answer. When journalists ask who authorized an action, responsibility evaporates. When inspectors general look for documentation, it doesn't exist. This is governance by plausible deniability. And it is corrosive. This is not an isolated incident. It fits a broader pattern across the Trump administration, both past and present. Informal advisors wielding outsized influence. Family members operating as diplomats. Political loyalists embedded in agencies they were never confirmed to run. Again and again, the same logic applies. Loyalty substitutes for legitimacy. And over time, that logic transforms the state itself. Institutions become hollow. Norms become optional. Oversight becomes performative. The danger is not one decision. It is precedent. Because once an administration establishes that power does not require process, future administrations inherit a weakened system. And systems, once weakened, do not easily recover. There is also the psychological dimension to consider. Leaders who surround themselves with unofficial enforcers do so for a reason. It allows them to test boundaries without personal exposure. It allows them to apply pressure without fingerprints. If something goes wrong, the individual was never officially empowered. If something succeeds, the influence remains intact. This dynamic is not unique to this administration. It appears in autocratic systems globally: shadow advisors, trusted confidants, unofficial chiefs of staff. The pattern is well documented, and it always ends the same way, with institutions losing coherence and legitimacy. DHS is not just another agency. It oversees border security, immigration enforcement, counterterrorism, disaster response. Its credibility matters. If DHS employees believe decisions are being made by someone who answers only to personal relationships, morale collapses, professionalism erodes, fear replaces clarity. And when that happens, mistakes multiply. This is not theoretical. It is operational risk. Now consider the FEMA angle again, because this is where abstraction turns into human cost. If disaster relief is influenced by political alignment, then communities suffer not because of geography or weather, but because of how they vote. That is the kind of governance failure that fractures a nation. It tells citizens that loyalty matters more than need, that suffering is negotiable, that help is conditional. That is not democracy. That is patronage. And patronage systems do not serve the public. They serve power. So what happens next? There are only a few possibilities. 1, the reports are false, and the administration proves it by formalizing authority, clarifying roles, and restoring oversight. 2, the reports are accurate, and Congress begins investigating, forcing accountability through hearings, subpoenas, and exposure. Or 3, and this is the most dangerous outcome, nothing happens. The arrangement continues, the influence remains, the shadows deepen, because silence is also a decision, and silence in this context is complicity. If Congress does not act, it sends a signal that informal power is acceptable. If the media does not pursue it, the story fades. If the administration does not correct it, the precedent solidifies. And once precedent solidifies, it becomes policy. This is how democratic erosion works, not through dramatic collapse, but through normalization of the unacceptable. The question is not whether this story is explosive, it is whether the system still has the capacity to respond. Because at its core, this is a test of institutional resilience. Do the safeguards still function? Does oversight still matter? Does accountability still apply? Or have we reached the point where power operates entirely on personal trust and political loyalty? This is why the focus on rumors misses the point. The truth or falsity of personal allegations does not change the structural failure being described. Even if there is no relationship, the shadow authority remains. Even if every denial is true, the governance problem persists, because no democracy should tolerate invisible power, and no administration committed to rule of law would allow it. This is not a partisan claim. It is a constitutional one. The framers understood something essential. Unchecked power is not stable. It corrodes. It demands more. It spreads. And when power is allowed to exist outside the system itself weakens. That is what is at stake here. Not reputations, not gossip, not headlines, but whether the machinery of American government still operates in the open. History will not remember who denied what. It will remember whether institutions held or quietly failed. And right now, the warning signs are flashing, because when power hides, democracy suffers. And when democracy suffers, the damage is never contained. It spreads.